Yeah.
All right, if there are any more questions for Bo, feel free to catch him on the break. Next up, we have Samantha DeWitt. Samantha is the co-owner of AgVice, an environmental services and regulatory compliance company that supports livestock and crop producers across Iowa. She develops manure management plans that support responsible nutrient use and prioritize the connection between livestock, crop production, and land stewardship. In addition to her professional work, Samantha is an active advocate for the pork industry. She is involved with many agriculture organizations and enjoys promoting agriculture and supporting youth involvement in the industry.
Hello everyone, happy to be here today. I was looking through the list of speakers today and all the accolades and PhDs, and I'm the one here to talk shit, so appreciate you being here. I was asked to speak about kind of maximizing nutrient values in manure, but also while navigating regulations. Obviously we have to consider the DNR when we're applying manure, so I was going to kind of review some of those things today. So the agenda: obviously the nutrient value and the economics of manure, maximizing those nutrients across your acres as best as possible, a quick regulatory overview, technology and record keeping tools, as well as other practical recommendations to navigate both manure management plan regulations and maximizing nutrients across your acres. So preaching to the choir here, I don't need to tell everyone about the importance of the swine industry in the state of Iowa. Obviously a huge economic impact. Corn soybean production obviously provides that high value protein. Environmental benefits, the value of the nutrients for the crops here in the state of Iowa is immense. I can think just back a few years ago when commercial fertilizer prices weren't quite as high as they are today. Manure wasn't necessarily considered as one of the benefits when constructing a new facility. Now it could be the make or break on whether or not those constructions cost cash flow for a producer. Manure is an asset, not a liability, and that's something that I believe that producers all across the country, not just Iowa, are trying to advocate for, especially when it comes to things like activists or community relations as well. Commercial fertilizer prices obviously remain volatile. Manure supplies NPK, sulfur, many micronutrients, improves soil health and organic matter, can significantly reduce fertilizer expenses. Proper soil management protects water quality, public perception. So a few trends, fertilizer market trends. Potash currently is the lowest price macro today, while swine manure does tend to be lower in potassium. Allows manure to be the cheapest fertilizer source. Nitrogen remains volatile. Phosphate remains tight. Potash, again, relatively strong. Global events continue to impact fertilizer costs. Nutrient efficiency is more important than ever. Many producers are focusing heavily on nutrient efficiency, maximizing the value, spreading that manure across more acres, obviously maximizing what they have in the pit. Why does this matter? When the commercial fertilizer price increases, obviously the value of the nutrients in that manure increases. Being as efficient as possible with that manure is incredibly important. Returns on things like manure storage, sampling, application management, all of that improves. And then the precision nutrient management becomes even more important. What acres we need to put that on, how far we're hauling it, things like that. So this is just a quick nutrient profile for a standard, I believe it's wean to finish facility in the state of Iowa. We see quite a range. Wean to finish, feed to finish, obviously there's nurseries, a few sows, that sort of thing. But I would say anywhere from a 40 to 60 pound nitrogen test would be pretty standard for the industry. We like to see that a little bit higher when it comes to maximizing water efficiency, not getting extra water in the pit, that sort of thing. But these are just kind of the DNR, close to the DNR's book values of what they would classify as a standard manure sample profile. For a wean to finish facility, the DNR's book value exact for a wean to finish facility is 56 pounds of nitrogen, and they allow us to go as low as 90% available the first year. They no longer allow us to, from a regulatory standpoint, go any lower than that. So roughly a 50-pound availability the first year when we include that 90% first year availability with no carryover, and then I believe it's a 2% application loss. This is just a quick spreadsheet. Again, using that 56-pound book value wean to finish facility. This would be numbers for a 2,400 head facility. Nutrient availability, you can see the plant available nitrogen there, phosphorus, potassium. Just kind of the highlighted cells there are just kind of filler template numbers for current commercial fertilizer prices to compare. On this spreadsheet that I have as an example, we can change those numbers. We can also change the nutrient analysis to fit, your specific facility. But as you can see across that, including application cost down at the bottom there, the total value, that would be for a 2,400 head facility. So clearly there is a significant value in that pit. So it's important for farmers to utilize that as best as possible. Variability. Obviously not all manure is created equal. I talked about the different feed systems, obviously animal phases, storage types. You're obviously going to have a whole lot different sample, different testing manure if it's an outside basin or a slurry store, things like that. Wet dry feeders have a big impact versus dry feeders on manure nutrient content. The diets. I get calls every year from producers saying, why have my manure analysis changed in the last couple of years so drastically? And a lot of that can be traced back to animal diets from their integrator, whether they're changing rations, that sort of thing. Water usage. Do we have labor in the barn that's being as efficient as possible with water usage? Are we getting any water in from the outside? That sort of thing. Agitation. Do we have solids build up on the bottom? Are we getting crust on the top? All of these things within the profile of the manure can have a big impact on the analysis of that manure. Emphasizes the importance of regular manure sampling, using certified labs for that sampling, and really avoid relying on those DNR book values. Know what's in your pit. You can't utilize that manure correctly if you don't regularly sample and know what's in there and are just planning off of what the DNR book value says. Sampling best practices. I get asked a lot of questions too about, okay, what's the best way to sample? The best method that I would recommend is doing it during pump out after agitation. Collect those samples from across time. Don't just take a small grab and go. That's going to be the most accurate analysis. A lot of folks do like to pre-plan their manure application rates and will take samples this time of year, anytime between now, August, September, to kind of have an idea of what is in the pit before they head out to the field with the tank. So for that, I encourage people to use a probe or some sort of sampling method that reaches the whole profile of the pit. You don't want to just pull water off the top, have a weak manure analysis, come back and think you can, go and put on this crazy amount of nutrients where you could be utilizing those across more acres instead. I recommend pulling multiple cores, different locations outside at the pump outs, mixing them in a bucket, and that is your one representative sample. Obviously prioritize safety anytime. We don't want to be entering the barns when they're agitating, that sort of thing. So think about things like that. Labeling and shipping. I get questions about that too. When we pull samples, we don't want them to sit in the hot sun for 2 weeks and then send them to the lab. You're not, again, going to get an accurate result from that. So we recommend refrigerating them, sending them at the first part of the week so they're not sitting somewhere over the weekend. Maximizing nitrogen availability, obviously timing and placement matter. Nitrogen loss, we all know nitrogen can be a tricky thing, right? Volatilization, denitrification, leaching, surface runoff, soil erosion, all opportunities to lose that nitrogen. We want to be able to keep that in the soil as best we can. Oops, wrong button. Timing, fall versus spring application. Obviously in the state of Iowa, the majority of our manure goes on in the fall. Soil temps, ideally we would wait until soil temps are below 50, but that doesn't necessarily happen. A lot of times people are at the mercy of the schedule of their commercial applicator. A lot of times we're at the mercy of weather. Sometimes we get early frost, early snow. In those warm soil temperatures, we do ask people to consider, N inhibitors when applying. That can be costly, but it's something to keep in mind if you know you're going to be putting all of your manure out on warm soils. There are laws, obviously, about avoiding application frozen snow-covered ground. Those kick in December and February, so that's something to keep in mind too. Spring application, I know that Dan Anderson at Iowa State will tell you spring application is the best way to go, but I understand that it's the most challenging. We have to worry about adequate storage, field conditions, obviously, compaction. We have a lot of things to worry about and consider with spring application, but it does generally provide the highest nitrogen use efficiency, obviously puts those nutrients closer to the crop, reduces the risk of N loss over the winter. A lot of my clients will split apply, but again, at the mercy of weather. A lot of those people are applying their own manure, not at the mercy of a commercial hauler. So it's just kind of what's best for your operation, but keeping in mind that you still want to maximize that nutrient source as much as possible. Placement matters. So injection, obviously it's the gold standard for manure and nitrogen conservation, minimizes volatilization, reduces odors, places the nutrients directly into that root zone. Generally it's injection with immediate incorporation, knifed in, but we do have situations where surface applied manure is necessary, whether it's pasture ground, that sort of thing. But ideally that manure would be incorporated as soon as possible to not lose those nutrients. Incorporation within 24 hours can dramatically reduce ammonia loss compared to leaving manure on that soil surface. There are also application setbacks that apply, regulatory requirements that apply if you are surface applying manure. Setbacks from things like water sources, wells, residences, public use areas, things like that. So that can limit the number of acres too where manure could be applied. So from the application side of it, obviously accuracy matters. Using an accurate flow meter, very, very important. We get lots of records and reports from applicators, farmers, whoever, that don't necessarily have the most accurate gallons. And we've kind of had to have those conversations about over or under application and making sure, again, we're efficient and we're using accurate technology, that sort of thing. You obviously want to apply manure as close to the crop uptake as practical. Inject that manure when at all possible. Use a good distribution manifold on the applicator. Again, commercial applicators generally, have a business or are using, some of these higher end technologies compared to some of the just confinement site applicators. Keep an eye on soil temperatures, and again, avoid frozen snow-covered ground unless it's an emergency situation. Manure is a fertilizer investment, not just a waste product. Soil health benefits of manure as compared to commercial fertilizer: increases in soil organic matter, soil structure, water infiltration and water holding capacity, stimulates the biological activity, supplies a broad spectrum of nutrients, improves nutrient cycling, and obviously reduces dependence on commercial fertilizer. It's more than just a soil amendment. Commercial fertilizer feeds the crop, but manure can feed that crop for years, or feed that soil and the crop for years to come. Water quality has also been a big topic of conversation, especially in the state of Iowa recently. So we have a slogan of the 4 R's of nutrient stewardship: right source, right rate, right time, right place. Again, nutrient manure management planning is critical for this. Proper application, manure storage and handling, some of the precision ag technologies, conservation practices, all of these things bucketed together are going to help improve and benefit water quality, especially in those areas that are of big concern and big topic of the news. Talked a little bit about the sensitive areas and setbacks. Again, a lot of these will apply to surface applied manure when injected. There's generally no separation distances because that manure is being injected and incorporated into the ground right away. But again, things like streams, rivers, lakes, ponds We're going to have setback requirements for surface applied manure. We want to be mindful of drainage ditches, intakes, wells, both public and private wells, sinkholes, tile intakes, steep sloped fields without terraces, that sort of thing, potential highly erosive areas, permeable soils. I'll add things like distance to residences, distances to town, distances to public use areas, businesses, things like that. All of those will apply. So the MMP requirements, which is my main focus, MMP is required in the state of Iowa for a finishing facility with 1,250 head or more. So those manure management plans include the total head capacity of the site, the estimated annual manure production, and then you have to prove that you have adequate acres for the manure that is being produced from that facility. They take into consideration the Iowa Phosphorus Index, which is used across every single field and every manure management plan to evaluate the potential loss of phosphorus in soil. Record keeping requirements, this is the regulatory side. Producers are required that have a manure management plan to maintain a copy of the MMP within 30 miles of the operation. And I say that with a little bit of a grain of salt because the DNR has had conversations about going paperless. And so I've had conversations about what does that look like, making sure you have those documents, whether it's an on-site copy of the manure plan, whether it's the information in the tractor when the pumpers are there hauling manure, what does that look like if it's paperless? But I think the most important takeaway for that is to make sure you have access to your manure management plan to verify your application rates when requested. Application records are required to be kept for 5 years. You have to, again, make all MMP documentation, all records, soil samples, everything that goes into a manure management plan has to be available to the DNR anytime they request it. And then another important thing is make sure your applicator, whether it's yourself or you're using a commercial hauler, is certified to haul that manure from a site that's got a manure management plan. Recent updates we've noticed in the last year or two, I would say there's been a big uptick in DNR inspections. These are spot checks, random. Most of the time they're pretty good about scheduling them ahead of time. Sometimes they can call and give you no notice. So again, having the importance of having that MMP ready to go, those records ready to go, all of the documentation handy and up to date is crucial for these DNR inspections. We've also seen some changes in recent years about some of the calculations we have to run for the plans. So again, making sure those are all updated prior to the DNR either calling or knocking at your door. Common compliance mistakes that we see during inspections: over application of manure without the documentation to justify. So I've had some folks that'll, put on a little side dress in the spring. Well, you have to have the documentation, whether that's a spring soil nitrate test, to prove that that crop needed the extra fertilizer. Using things like crop insurance yields, generally 9 times out of 10, a producer's individual farm yields are a lot higher than the county average yields. So they justify their application rate by a higher yield that they're actually achieving on their farm. We have to have that documentation to be able to prove that to the DNR. Using an actual manure analysis rather than just that book value that we talked about before. Again, the late spring soil nitrate testing. Another mistake, failing to have records at all. Again, we have to keep those for 5 years. Missing or incomplete information, the DNR does have a record keeping form that makes it easy with all the information that they require. Being late on turning in an MMP, whether it's a full update, an annual short form update, and then things on site, physical on site inspections, they're looking for things like your perimeter tile around your barn. It's required to either daylight on your property, or it has to have a shut-off valve with some sort of sump pump or something down there to prove that you are monitoring that perimeter tile, that there's no leaks in the pit, that sort of thing. They look for things like spilled feed, mortality handling, making sure everything's being well kept, taken care of, you don't have any drainage issues, no dead pigs laying anywhere, things like that. So those are the common things that we see during a DNR inspection. Regulatory trends, again, increased focus on water quality. There's a big emphasis on compliance and enforcement. DNR has kind of an unwritten 3-strike rule. If you have 3 violations, whether it's something as small as I was late getting my MMP turned in, after 3 strikes, you're going to be referred to have potentially a fine. So it's important to maintain those records, basically keep all of that documentation up to date, not be late, have everything they need, don't get in trouble. Complete record keeping, again, there's also pressure for a lot more transparency. We have heard rumblings from some activist groups that are interested in pulling every manure management plan in the state of Iowa. What they're going to do with those, I'm not sure. If that's going to happen, I'm not sure. I think that would take a significant amount of time and manpower from the DNR to provide that, because at the end of the day, a manure management plan is a public record. So there are activist groups out there that are advocating for stronger regulations, and it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see where that specifically goes and what they're able to accomplish with that. Technology is our friend. Record keeping, digital record keeping is so much easier than I've received records as simple as a tally mark on a Casey's napkin. That's obviously not a complete manure application record, right? So our company specifically has an online record keeping tool. I know there's other companies out there, or even, other individuals that are keeping their records online. I highly recommend it. Using that digital tool can really automate that record keeping and make it easier. Technically, you're supposed to have those records available immediately after application, not 6 months down the road. So using an online tool, using spreadsheets, having everything saved digitally is going to make that much easier than having just a giant paper trail to have to dig through. Things like variable rate and other technology, I'll touch on just a little bit. People can variable rate manure today. However, the maximum gallons that we're even allowed to apply is regulated by the DNR. So that's very hard to manage. John Deere does have a new technology. I have not personally, I don't know if anybody else here has seen that personally. I have not personally seen that technology work. But it's their in-field near infrared technology. It promises on-the-go analysis and will variable rate manure. Problem is calibration. I can imagine that would be something very difficult to calibrate. Also, those results are not yet accepted by the Iowa DNR, again, because we're only allowed to apply it up to a maximum application rate that we are not allowed to exceed. So lowering that rate from the very max just doesn't seem to be as super efficient if you're not planning on commercial side dress. These units are still being tested. Again, that's promising technology for the future. I'm not sure we're there yet. But right now, I don't believe it's super cost effective. I know some dragline operations have tried it, but that it's technology coming down the line that I think will be here in the next number of years. To finish, I guess top 5 recommendations: know your nutrients, sample regularly, know what's in the pit, know how to best utilize that across the acres available. We're applying manure at the right rate, right time, right place, proper timing, soil temperatures, soil conditions. Keep your records, make sure everything's current and updated. Be ready for the DNR, document everything. Protect those sensitive areas, water resources, wells, setbacks, that sort of thing. Again, be prepared for the DNR. If you haven't had an inspection in a number of years, they are coming. They will. And people like us are here to help you. So again, key takeaways: maximize the value to minimize the risk of that manure. The most successful manure management programs don't just meet the regulations. Again, they're maximizing that manure across every acre. It's not considered a waste anymore. It's something that's obviously a tool that we're going to utilize as efficiently as possible to grow a crop to feed the pigs in the circle of life, right? Every gallon represents nutrients, dollars, stewardship, future of your operation. So with that, I'll end with a favorite photo and any questions. Dean.
Sam, is the 3 strikes, is that forever or within 2 years or 3 years?
I think it's 3 strikes, either in a year or in the same year, or kind of you'll have 3 violations before they will refer you to legal.
I can say if it's 3 strikes forever, that would be
it's an unwritten rule, so I can't quote for sure what it is, but.
Thank you.